My name is Anita Lettink. I have worked in the HR industry for the past 20 years. I focus on the future of work and the role of technology so that we can execute the right workforce strategies. I'll start by asking you a question. Can you imagine a world without jobs? Think about that for a second. Now, I'm not saying there won't be work, not at all. There will always be work. What I'm asking is, what if there were no more jobs? Here is why. Work used to be what you do, but for young people, work increasingly reflects who they are. It's about purpose and passion. It's about how you see the world and can contribute. And yes, it's also about earning a living. The shift is from I need a job to finance my life to I want a job to finance my life, but I also want to have a life. And I want to do something with purpose. And I want the organization that I work for that to reflect that purpose. And I want to see it in action every day. Back to the question. A job really is a construct of the industrial age. We had to be in the factory or in the office to work. And the average working day is 8 hours because you need 3 shifts to keep the factory running 24/7. Because people had the same job for a long time, their responsibilities were described in a job profile, so they knew what to do. Every couple of years, they got promoted to a next higher level. They built a career path, also called a ladder, and typically worked towards an end goal, being the team leader or the boss. As we shift from the industrial to the digital age, a lot has changed. For many, a job isn't tied to a location anymore. Using the available technology, they can work from anywhere. And during the pandemic, that group suddenly became a lot larger. And even though not everyone enjoys it, it's fair to say that many people aren't looking forward to go back to their place of work full time. They aspire a hybrid work setting. Which has 2 consequences. When someone can work from anywhere, the job market becomes global, which means that you face more competition when you try to hire these people. But the flip side is that this global labor market also benefits you as an employer. Your talent pool just expanded exponentially. Let's go back to jobs. Think about your own job description. How accurate is it? When was it last updated? Does it describe what you do today? Probably not. And that is the issue. Work is changing so fast that it is impossible to keep up. I once started a job and within a week, my manager reached out and told me that the team was going to be disbanded and they had another role in mind for me. You get hired for your knowledge, experience, and skills. Companies are constantly changing, and so are roles. When you work in technology like I do, you're very used to thinking about work as projects with a defined set of deliverables and a go-live date. Project teams often include contractors and independents because you don't have all the skill sets you need in-house. In that sense, technology is really ahead of the curve and an example for what's in store for the new world of work. Project-based assignments where working towards defined outcomes and thinking in skill sets becomes the norm. If you work at a company or in a function where you still think in terms of job descriptions and occasional promotions, you have work to do. Young people think about work differently. They don't think in career paths. They see their careers as a lattice, which with many moves between companies, depending on what interests and challenges them. They look for a new role based on where they can grow personally and expand their skill sets. With their average tenure dropping below 4 years, it is clear that career ladders hold no interest to them. They're also less interested in full-time jobs. That has many reasons, but I want to point one out. Through the financial crisis, and again during the pandemic, they have learned that a permanent job is no guarantee. When companies go through bad times, people get fired. 10 years ago, they saw that happen to their parents, and last year it happened to them. As a consequence, they are de-risking their incomes by creating several income streams. Anyone with a credit card can set up an online business. When they can, they will work for more than one company, have a small business, maybe run a gig, or study and volunteer. The world of work and how they look at work is profoundly changing. And to be able to do that, they focus on marketing their skills. The number of marketplaces where people offer themselves as independents is increasing exponentially. You'll see new ones pop up every day. You now have marketplaces for any role that you can think of. Local work like Uber or Helpling, creative design like Fiverr, marketplaces for teachers, nurses, engineers, and hospitality staff, and even for the C-suite. They're called fractional executives. And yes, marketplaces are often very niche, like this example for post-production people. That means that if you hire them, you have to meet them where they are on these marketplaces. And to do so, you must describe the work that you offer as a project with defined outcomes, not a job. It's an overview of the skills you need defined in activities towards a deliverable. Once they have delivered that project to you, they move on to the next company. They have a connection to you, but also to many other companies. If they liked working for you, they might come back for a future assignment. To them, corporate boundaries don't really exist. They think in networks to share their knowledge and learn from others. They go where they think they can learn something new, where they will be challenged. And once that's done, they will move on to the next challenge. Now, it might seem like a distant memory, but in the years before the pandemic hit, we were facing a labor shortage in many geographies around the world. The pandemic stalled that for a while, but it's now back with a vengeance. It's hard to find good people, and even harder to employ them for a 40-hour work week. They can set their demands and join you on their terms. They are not necessarily thinking about higher salaries. Many of them do this to achieve a better quality of life. It's one more reason to think differently about the workforce. So when you ask business and HR people about the highest risk to their company, they agree on a lot. They all consider attracting and retaining talent a high priority item. But the opinions start to diverge when you ask them about skills. Business people seem to be very aware that current skills are quickly becoming obsolete, and they consider that a business risk. In the research I have seen, and this is just one example, HR professionals seem to underplay the skills issue. That might be because they have so much on their plate right now, because I cannot imagine that they are ignoring the fact that the digital era comes with a shorter lifespan of skills. A recent chart from Gartner shows that skills not only become obsolete much faster, the number of skills per job increases with on average 10% per year. As you can see in the chart, 30% of the skills required in 2017 are obsolete for that same role just a few years later. The example also demonstrates that skills and competencies are dynamic. You won't be surprised to hear that digital skills are the most in demand and also age the fastest. Static job descriptions can't keep up. Which means that in order to create a strategic workforce plan, you have to be agile and nimble and base it on skills, not on jobs. Which brings us to workforce planning itself. By now you might wonder, if skills and competencies are so dynamic, does it still make sense to do workforce planning at all? To which I would answer, yes. In my mind, it's critical to have a strategic workforce plan in place so you can confidently support your leaders with their business strategy. It all starts with the strategic business plan for your company. Once that's been created, you can start the assessments of the current workforce. Who is in it? What skills do they have? Where are they based? How long will they remain? The skills gap analysis is where you compare the skills of the current workforce versus the skills you need to successfully execute the business strategy. It would be great if you could cover all future needs in-house, but it's usually not the case. So once you've established a good baseline of the workforce, including segmentation, you can start to think about scenarios. What if retention goes up? What if you train more people? What if employees leave at a higher rate than you expected? Based on the gaps that you see emerge, you can then design action plans to address the most likely scenarios. Maybe you decide to upskill certain employees and bridge some of the gaps in-house. You should also review external options and identify how you can bring people in with the desired skills, either as permanent employees or temporary as independents, or through the marketplaces that I referred to earlier. Or maybe even partner with a company that has people available and might occasionally need access to your talent pool. Be very creative and don't put early boundaries around the solutions you can think of. There are many ways to bridge skill gaps. The good thing about scenario planning is that you are prepared to deal with different events and have action plans in place for when they occur. But the foundation underneath all of it is to use the available people systems to feed your workforce planning solution. Because once you see the numbers on your workforce dashboard trend in a different way from what you expected, you can immediately put these plans in motion. Acting quickly will always give you a leg up. When thinking about strategic workforce planning, there are two topics I want to bring to your attention before I finish the presentation: flexibility and automation. Both can help you when solving workforce issues and should be considered as part of any strategic plan. When we think about new ways of working, we hear a lot about hybrid work. But what we really need to focus on is flexibility. That is what workers want. The flexibility to work when and where they want. The flexibility to move from one assignment to another, maybe even from one state or country to another. The flexibility to move between companies. The flexibility to move between roles and do something completely different in your next assignment. It's not about hybrid. When you design your strategic workforce plan and think about the people you need, do so with flexibility in mind. Secondly, some people might tell you that automation will help you deal with the labor and skills shortage, but I'm not one of them. While I do think that we can do much more in that area, even Elon Musk recently admitted that fully self-driving cars are not coming shortly. People still outperform machines in many areas: creative thinking, innovation, intellectual challenges. Automation moves fastest on repetitive skills. And contrary to what many people think, white-collar work is full of repetitive activities. So think in a scenario where people will work with robotics. Automation will replace some of what we do, but not all we do, and certainly not our full jobs. Automation might give you some breathing room, but it won't solve the skills shortage. So when you assess future skills, think carefully through what you can automate and how it can help alleviate some of the pressure in your workforce planning. The pandemic isn't over yet, and it's too early to say where the world is headed. But when we look at the future of work and the way people embraced alternative work arrangements, I can give you some pointers of what you'll need to think about when creating a strategic workforce plan. Your workforce will be very diverse, from permanent employees to part-time joiners and independents with a variety of contract options. Your workforce will also be dispersed. You'll have on-site and off-site workers who work from anywhere. Some will come in for a day or so, and others you will never meet in person. The physical workspace is fading away, and a much more heterogeneous work arrangement will take over. Diverse teams and structures working in projects towards desired outcomes rather than jobs. And the work will be outcome-based, not where and when you work, but what you deliver is what counts. And in all of that, skills are crucial assets, and when workers have marketable skills, they have the ability to determine who they work for and on what terms. And so to support that, we'll see a rise in marketplaces offering work governed by smart contracts. And think through automation. What will people do and what will robots do? So the jobs of the future might not be jobs as we know them today. By 2025, I believe we will be well on our way to establishing a new work culture. Right now, we have a great chance to set up the strategic plans we need to support and empower people. And given that the workforce is shrinking in combination with the demands of the digital age, being prepared, finding the right answers early might mean the difference between thriving and surviving in the new world of work. Having a well thought out strategic workforce plan in place helps you deal with different scenarios, and that will be a solid step in the right direction. Thank you so much for your attention.